Welcome, everyone, to the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley. You've joined us for the program for the meeting of April the 20th, 2015. And as we do every week, it's our goal to find interesting people talking about things that are near and dear to our hearts and how service can possibly play a role in how we approach these things as a club and as individuals. And in that regard, we have a wonderful speaker with us today, Joanna Jaeger. Joanna is a graduate of San Jose State University, and she has two children, one of whom has autism. Both have type 1 diabetes. And so she has been an advocate for years for children with special needs in the educational system, and has been a longtime volunteer with Parents Helping Parents, which is a nonprofit in our area which serves families with children with special needs. So I hope you are going to enjoy what she has to say. She has lots of good information to share. And with that, I will pass it over to Joanna. Joanna, it's yours.
Thanks, Rushton, and thanks to Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley for inviting me to speak. It's nice to try a new platform for connecting with people who may be able to make a difference in the lives of people with disabilities. So I'm happy to be here. I have a brief presentation, and I want to preface it with, I'll be talking about employment for people with disabilities. And the first thing I want to say is that I believe, with only very, very few exceptions, that all people should work. If you're, regardless of your abilities or your stature or whatever, there's very few exceptions for people in the employment community. And it's where we get, as adults, where we get our kind of self-definition, our self-esteem, our sense of accomplishment, our connection to other people. So it's how we contribute and how we connect as community members. So I feel like that people with disabilities need to have the same kinds of opportunities and the same kinds of connections. So that said, I'd like to embark on this presentation, and barring any crazy interruptions from my home with barking dogs and construction workers and things like that, we'll go forward with this. So here I'm going to light up the presentation, and we'll get going. Okay. All right, we're all set. When I think about my big vision for my son and his life as an adult, and all individuals with developmental disabilities, I see a community where businesses, small and large, and each business employs one person with disabilities. It's easy to learn and understand about the needs and the quirkiness or the sensitivities of one person. And so what I'm hoping is, all of you out there, all of you influencers and community members and activists will start to think about the possibilities of, how might you include a person with disabilities in your workplace. As Rushton mentioned, I'm the mom of two young adults, one with autism, both with type 1 diabetes. My contact information is on this sheet, and you are welcome to contact me via email or phone at Parents Helping Parents. So the information is there. In the process of thinking about employment for my son, I've been lucky enough to have a good school system and teachers who were setting the stage for those opportunities. And initially it's about setting the expectation that people can work and should work and want to work, presuming that they're capable of working, allowing the dignity of risk. This is a very sensitive one for many parents of kids with special needs, because we are sort of in a fear-based environment. What if this happens? What if that happens? But we are all allowed, as we move into adulthood, the dignity of risk, that we take a few chances and that we learn from them, and that we're allowed to make mistakes, and that everybody makes mistakes. People with disabilities often are more highly scrutinized than people without disabilities, that their expectation is that they be on task 100% of the time, or that they never spill something or break something or whatever. When the reality is in the workplace, those kinds of things happen, and they should be allowed to continue through that and learn from those things. And the big message is that just one person can make a difference. One person giving one other person an opportunity can start to change lives and change perceptions. And we want everybody to be able to feel like they're a part of that, and to dream big, for not for just for themselves, but for all people in their community. The key to this process is assessing where you are and what you need to do, both from the individual with disabilities perspective and also from the employer perspective. What can we find in the workplace that is that's going to be a good fit? What kinds of opportunities do we have that our employees don't want to do or can't do or don't have the time to do, that maybe somebody else can do on a part-time basis? So doing the upfront work helps to set everybody up for success. So when I look at the areas that you need to assess, the environment is probably one of the more critical ones. Does somebody enjoy working indoors or outdoors? Are there noise or other sensory issues? Is the pace of things an issue? For instance, if someone is working at Starbucks, people's expectation is that things are going to happen pretty quickly. So if you have somebody with who moves more slowly in the process, it can be a little bit frustrating, and it may not be the right fit for the people in. Whereas if you were at a place that people were having to wait, one of the ideas I heard of somebody was saying, oh, a coffee cart would be great, but having it at a car dealership service center where people have plenty of time and can wait is very different than if people are getting in and out on their way to work. So looking at the pace of things.
Joanna, I'm going to interrupt for just a second.
Yeah.
So I believe that the second slide in the deck addresses that issue of environment, and we just want to make sure that we're going through those in that particular screen.
Okay, I was moving through slides
from the editing screen, I think.
From the editing screen. Okay. So is we back there? Okay.
Looking good.
All right. So I was looking at I was clicking through the editing screen and not the, I don't think I left too much behind, but now we're back on track. Anyway, and looking at the environmental issues, again, the numbers of people involved, their physical limitations, and the distance from home and the travel requirements. I had many people say, oh, you should look at this program for your son. And, I live in Milpitas and the program was in Palo Alto. Well, that's just not a realistic commute every day for somebody who's going to work for a couple of hours at a time. It would take him, 2+ hours to get there, and then would have to turn around and get back. So depending on, here in Silicon Valley, while we do have some public transportation, it's not particularly efficient, and it can be fraught with challenges for people who have communication issues or who have health issues or intellectual disabilities that makes it more difficult for them to enjoy that independence. So where all this activity happens is in the area of connections, which is why I'm talking to you guys. Do you know someone who works at a place that you do business? Is this, do you have a neighbor or a coworker or a place that that you're already connected to in some way? Or do you have experience in that particular field, whether it be education or high tech? and really cultivating those connections, because people, and it's the same with anyone getting a job. It's not just people with disabilities, but I think our responsibility, certainly as parents and as community members, is is a little bit more weighted when it comes to individuals with disabilities, because they're less likely to be able to speak eloquently on their own behalf, and they're maybe not going to be able to access a job through the traditional arenas of, online applications and things like that. It's like, how do we get a foot in the door? And particularly powerful connections are groups like Rotary and Lions and Kiwanis, and your churches and your community centers, and ways that you can, put it out there in the world that that you're looking for opportunities, and trying to create a successful match for an individual. They kind of scanning where it is you do business and what's going on in your neighborhood, and is always an important place to start. Only then would I look at the actual skills and abilities and interests of a person with disabilities. That the skill set is rarely the biggest barrier. Many times there are, small jobs that can be done. There's a term called job carving. So you look at someone who is a professional in your office, and they don't have time to do some of the tasks that their job requires of them, but it certainly doesn't need their level of education or their level of expertise. The administrative stuff, the filing or the shredding or the the tidying up or setting things up. So looking at people's abilities from a perspective of what they can do, from a perspective of strengths, because the reality is most of us find ourselves in jobs that play upon our strengths, and that are amplified by our strengths, rather than saying we don't know. It's like, I'll confess that I don't love math, so I'm gonna have I'm not going to seek out a job that requires for me to do a lot of math. I'm going to seek out a job that requires me to connect with people in a very personal way, because that's where my strengths are. And for an individual with disabilities to look at their strengths from a perspective of, are they good at attention to detail, or are they like routines? Are they interested in being helpful and pleasing and being cooperative and all of that? And those are the kinds of skills that really allow someone to be successful in the workforce. Many people with disabilities they're not going to be the ones that are going to stir up trouble around the water cooler, or they're going to come in and they're going to do their job, and they're going to go from beginning to end and feel proud of the work that they're doing, rather than getting into some of the office politics or the distractions that sometimes come in a larger workplace. Also paying attention to soft skills. Now, that may be a challenge, a bigger challenge. I know for my son, that's certainly a bigger challenge than his actual ability to do the job, because his communication skills are so limited. He's not going to be the most attentive customer service person. He would certainly not be a good receptionist or something like that. So so really looking at, and if they're interested, for instance, if somebody loves music, could they find a job working around a radio station? They're not going to be the on-air DJ, but they might be able to be around that environment and learn some of the skills and some of the background activities. Or if they love sports, I know that the new Levi Stadium has had an initiative for hiring people with disabilities for their events. If they love, gardening or, food service or whatever, what's their favorite place to go, looking at those trying to find those kinds of matches for their interests. Many parents will say, oh, my kid loves video games. He wants to grow up to be a video game designer. Well, that's a very complex job and a very, very highly competitive job. And they have to have an engineering background and a programming background and a graphic arts background and all of that sort of stuff. And just because you like to play video games doesn't mean you can find a job as a video game designer, but you might be able to find a job at a video game company doing something that could be helpful to that process. So looking through and at the depth of the peripheral jobs that are associated with things. I think in general in our, high school career, assessment stuff, people are still looking at very, very traditional jobs, teacher, nurse, doctor, firefighter. It's the same list that you had when you were in first grade that you're getting when you're in high school. And we don't look at all the sort of the deep connected positions that might be in support of and that allow those interests to be, taken advantage of. There's one of the hesitations that employers often feel is that, we can't give any support. We don't have extra people that can shepherd someone with disabilities around and to ensure that they're safe and that they're doing their job. So there are many agencies that are available to people, the Department of Rehab, the developmental disability system have people who do job development, which is looking at the kinds of jobs that might be out there, job coaching, and also job carving, finding pieces of jobs that can be done by individuals. Many individuals with disabilities would have a hard time working full-time, partly because of health issues or attentional issues or anxiety issues or whatever. So looking for, even a job that's a couple of hours a day, a few days a week, those are all good opportunities. It's not, it's not full employment. It's not going to be something they'd be able to support themselves on, but it's an opportunity to begin to establish a work ethic, something to get up for every day. I think those are all very important. Again, from an employer perspective, looking at the tax incentives, there's something called a work opportunity credit, where an employer can get back a percentage of the wages paid to an individual with disabilities. I think there are many people who are not taking advantage of this, and again, I'm not an accountant or a tax person, but it's something worth looking into. If you can get refunded 25% of somebody's pay for employing them, that's a pretty good deal. And then looking towards natural supports, identifying coworkers who are willing and interested in being part of that support team. My son's job at Orchard Supply Hardware, there have come to the top of a number of people who are interested in him and willing to shepherd him around a little bit as we're working towards him building more independence. And somebody can be the go-to person in your organization to develop a better understanding and even a friendship with someone is a great way to go. And in small workplaces, those are often very easy to identify. In a bigger workplace, and a little more structured workplace, it's sometimes harder to do because people don't think of that as part of their job. But we all look out for each other in the workplace, so it's good to cultivate that at all levels. These are some of I put some examples of businesses that have been actually created for people, for and by people with disabilities. Big Al's Best is my son, Alex. He makes spectacular English toffee. He can also provide services like shredding and errands, taking things for shipment or picking things up from the post office or things like that. working on developing that as a business. Smile Biscotti is a young man in Arizona who, with his family, have created a gourmet biscotti business, and they're selling to, they have some big clients like hotels, and they were actually included in the NFL tailgate celebrations, so making, you know, hundreds of biscotti. And this Rising Tide Car Wash is a business that a father in Florida created for his son, as well as a number of other people with disabilities. It's a great video that shows their, you know, people with autism and their attention to detail, and how that can be really beneficial to a business like a car wash. There's coffee carts and hot dog carts and you know, small businesses, as well as just a service-based industry. You know, how can you be helpful? One of the things my son said as he was aging out of the school system, I asked him, what did he want to be when he grows up? And he said, Mom, I want to be a helper. And to me, that there couldn't be anything better than that. That he wants to be helpful wherever he can, and he's helpful around the house, and he can be helpful around his work, and he's helpful as a volunteer. And I'm doing my best to cultivate that in all that he does. There's a long list of local Silicon Valley agencies and resources that you can find out about individuals who are seeking employment, as well as resources that can benefit people who are seeking employment. I won't go through the whole list. Everybody can hopefully read that. The big one that at the top is Parents Helping Parents, with whom I'm very closely affiliated. I've been a board member for a number of years, and been the recipient of their services. They serve and support families all over the Bay Area with a wide range of special needs, not just autism or Down syndrome, but learning disabilities and all that. And they have a big focus on employment and adults with disabilities, and making that quality of life meaningful and rich. And then I included a couple of videos at the end, and Rushton, I will make these available to people who, you know, if you can access the presentation and click through the links and see those. I think I've covered what I need to cover. Let me see where I get back to. I'll stop sharing the screen. And are there any questions right away? Am I back on my face?
Absolutely, absolutely. First of all, thank you very much for the work you're doing. It's wonderful to see a good message about where I would say the dignity of work lies for people. I mean, you know, just for everybody, that sense of, you know, I'm contributing to society. You know, I have something to give is incredibly important, and that you've identified kind of these paths where families can start identifying those possibilities for their children with disabilities is something very special. I would kind of jump into this from a couple of other angles, and I'll ask you to comment on them. So as you know well, and as many of our members, because we have a lot of members in education, as well as members of our club with family members who have disabilities of one sort or another, there is a rather profound spectrum of disabilities. So the term you identified as one that is a careful term is one that I want to make sure hasn't lost any of our viewers as well, and that's the dignity of risk, because that term makes tons of sense when you're talking about not overprotecting someone. You know, if you're worried, for example, you talked about the possibility of someone spilling something, or, you know, that makes sense. People have to learn, you know, kind of consequences of basic actions. That's wholly different, of course, than someone whose disability might prompt them to start fires or to run into the street or something like that. And the term dignity of risk is used in some parts of the country mostly as a political move to shut down agencies or homes where people who are on that end of the spectrum and who really do need a lot more care, they've used that term, to argue for shutting down some of those entities, and so it's I think important, to kind of have that sense of, okay, the dignity of work. If we think of work in terms of, it's the chance to learn from what you do each day and to get better at it and to be a part of a team and to understand that that's who you are, as opposed to not working, which is demoralizing, and we could go on and on, right? But yeah, so my brother, for example, is severely autistic, and at the Human Development Center, and where he is, it's a boarding facility. He has friends, he has a job, he works in recycling, and he loves it, right? And so he's able, his rather complex medical issues are cared for, but he's able to contribute to society as well. So for me, the real goal in the presentation is the thought that we can get more families with those in the family who have disabilities at the higher functioning stages to be able to get out and work in places where folks have said, we're going to find a place on our team, for you who might have actually all the more focus on, this particular need we have.
Right. Taking advantage of that. I like the term dignity of work as well as the dignity of risk, and I hadn't thought about that term dignity of risk being used as a, well, let's just put them out there on the street and let them figure it out. But I think that the whole in this transition to adulthood, the structure of 18 years of a school system that has provided 30 hours a week of structured, hopefully meaningful intervention falls apart at the end of that 18 years, and there are very few programs that can that really can provide that kind of structure. They have adult day programs and things like that, but many of them are sort of, let's just keep them safe, we'll go shuffle around the mall, and if you could, it's not very meaningful. And having those opportunities to work, whether it be as a volunteer at the food pantry or as where my son volunteers at the senior center, all of those are opportunities to be sort of included and welcomed and to be useful. Even the terms that they use in the developmental disability system, people are called consumers. And I think that, semantics make a difference, that they're I would rather have them called clients. Some organizations are shifting to that, but there's this underlying presumption that they're really just sucking the resources out of the public system and not putting anything back. And I think that having somewhere to go, having some reason to get up in the morning, benefits not only the workplaces and the volunteer organizations that they're supporting, but also the individuals as well. When you talk about quality of life, having something to do is an important part of that. Having something to people to be connected to, somebody to care about, somebody who cares about you, and not just a paid person who cares about you, but other people who care about you. So, and being in a workplace, in a work environment, helps to cultivate that. That's how we're all connected. I met my husband at the workplace, and I met many of my friends over the years who are my long-term friends that I no longer work with, but I still met them in the professional environment. And so when you don't have those kinds of things to go to, you're missing out on those opportunities, and it's a really powerful, it's a big gap in people's lives if they don't have that. But when I look at my own community in Milpitas, I see lots of small businesses, restaurants and offices and real estate, offices and banks and all those. And there's so many. If they just each had one person come in and part-time, 3 days a week, somebody who came in and did the shredding of the confidential documents. My son loves to do that. And we met our dentist, and he said, well, I have a bunch of shredding to do. can we pay you to do the shredding? So now he's doing shredding once a week for the dentist, and you know, that's a very small business, and but it's a place that you know, they've known us over the years, and he was open to it, and he says, you know, I have a shed full of things that need to be shredded, so Alex should have plenty of work to do over the next years, and that's a great opportunity, and he likes doing it. I don't think I would like doing it particularly, but he really enjoys it. So and so he's doing something that's of value to someone else, and that helps them, and you know, it's all good.
Good. Well, you know, one of the things that I really connected with on your talk is the whole idea that we have the potential to help others kind of see these possibilities in their businesses, right? So, you know, it may be that one of our members has a business where they're like, you know, we could hire somebody to do that. But every member can talk to people about these issues, right? Every member can be someone who advocates at a school for helping kids with disabilities see possibilities for themselves, right? So, you know, if what they do is they know that there are places where people like them have had the chance to work and they enjoy it, and they can tell about the work they do. I mean, that just allows them to see themselves in a new regard. And I think that's really, really healthy.
Well, I mentioned school districts, and I think, you know, the school district's goal for an individual with disabilities in special education is to prepare them for employment, prepare them for adult life. Yet very few school districts are actually employing people.
True.
And I think, you know, that's a great opportunity. And from a parent perspective, it's a place where I would feel safe sending my son back to work, you know, that it's a relatively safe environment, and it's a relatively, you know, it's a kind people, you know, teachers are, you know, the greatest people on earth as far as I'm concerned. And to say that, you know, can somebody with disabilities be an office helper and delivering things to one, you know, to one building or another, or between schools. I mean, we have here in Milpitas have a cluster of an elementary, a middle, and a high school, all in the same block. So could somebody like my son, you know, deliver? He attended all three of those schools. It's a familiar setting. You know, would that be an opportunity for him to be connected and to be helpful? And all that, and I would love to work with you know, school administrations to say, okay, what are the opportunities for at first volunteer support and then potentially paid employment. You know, those are all great opportunities. So you teachers out there, start thinking about that.
And strong thoughts to end on, right
yeah,
there.
Yeah.
Let everybody know that over the course of the week, Joanna has volunteered to make sure to check in and see what the comments people have left at the bottom are, and respond to those as well. So if you have questions, you can leave them in the comments if you are watching this as a recording, which is very cool. So we will probably thank Joanna for presenting to us today.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to put this information out there, and I look forward to maybe connecting with you guys in person at some point as we're out and about in Silicon Valley. So thanks again, Rushton, and to Dean McCulley for inviting me, and to Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley. Thank you.
You are most welcome. Those of you who have been attending this meeting, please note that at the bottom of this page, you can find a place where you can fill out a little attendance survey. Members, you have to do it, right? Guests, we strongly encourage you to. It's an opportunity for us to send a little thank you email to you as well. You'll all notice that there's a little happy buck section in there as well. If you want to toss in a couple of dollars for some good message that you've got to share, please feel free to do that. And then finally, please do leave a comment at the bottom of the page. It's our chance to really share, kind of what we're seeing in these programs, what we're seeing in the club, and how we can figure out how technology can best serve service. That is our goal. So with that, I want to thank everybody for attending, and we hope we will see you next week as part of the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley. Find us anytime from anywhere at siliconvalleyrotary.com. Take care.